What is up, guys? Randomonium here. Today I'm going to be doing my predictions for Week 1 for the 2016 Spring Split for Fantasy LCS. But first, I just wanted to say thank you to all the people who watched my first video and gave me a thumbs up or shared the video or left a comment. I greatly appreciated that, and it's definitely motivated me to make this kind of a weekly thing that I'm going to do from now on, where I'm just going to break down the matchups every single week, try and give you guys the best data that I can. But the way these videos are going to work is I'm going to go through every single team. I'm going to tell you who they're going to be going up against, how I think each of those games is going to break down, and then I'm also going to talk about who I think is going to be the key player for that team. And what I mean by key player is the player that is going to have the biggest impact on their team's ability to win. What player has favorable matchups, and really what player who's probably going to score more fantasy points than they normally would. I'm not going to say that these key players are going to get the highest fantasy points out of like the entire LCS, but I think they're going to do better than average. So before we get into the breakdown, the last thing I want to talk about is that a lot of times when you hear people talking about LCS and things like that, they use very negative terminology when they're describing players. They'll say this player is trash, or this player is garbage, or this player is awful. I don't think that's very appropriate when you're talking about the top 1% of the top 1% of players, which is what all of these LCS players are. I understand that they're saying that the person is trash compared to another LCS player. I just don't think that those kind of disrespectful words are really appropriate. So I'm going to try to refrain from using those type of words whenever I do these videos. I'll try to say that, this person's in a favorable matchup, or this person, I don't think they stack up very well, things like that. But if anything I say in these videos comes off as disrespectful, please know that that is not my intention. I have a ton of respect for all these players in the LCS, but I do need to make objective assessments, and some players are better than others. So I'll try to do that in a respectful manner, but also in an honest manner. So I'm getting into the breakdowns for the week. First team I'll talk about is CLG. They're going against TSM and Dignitas this week. I expect that CLG will go 2-0. Yes, I am saying that CLG is going to beat TSM. And the primary reason why I think CLG is going to beat TSM is TSM traditionally struggles in week 1 of pretty much most splits that they've been in. They usually underperform in week 1, and CLG they are very experienced together on the stage. I mean, Huhi is kind of new, but he was a sub for the team. The only person that they're really getting new is Stixay, and they've gone through an IEM with him and things like that. So I think that that experience is going to really help CLG in week 1 to be able to go 2-0. The key player for CLG is going to be Darshan. They really want to make sure they put him in a 1v1 lane. They don't want to have a lane swap occur where Darshan is in a 1v2 and he can get denied farm and get denied gold. So I would look to see Darshan in a 1v1 lane and Xmithy coming up top lane early to assist him in getting some extra gold and being able to snowball the lane and roam. Next team I'll talk about is TSM, and I know people are going to be getting at the pitchforks and torches, but I'm saying that TSM is going to go 0-2 this week. They're going against CLG and Team Liquid, which are both very difficult matchups. And as I was saying before, TSM traditionally struggles in their first week. They usually underperform. I do think that this TSM team is one of the most stacked in the NALCS. That said, I think that they're going to struggle early on the season, and they're just going to pick up steam, and they're just going to become an unstoppable force towards the mid and the late part of the season. The only way that I see TSM winning their games this week is double lift. If double lift can get ahead, that's going to free up Yellow Star and allow Yellow Star to roam more often. And that's what's going to allow TSM to snowball their games and possibly win. So the key player for TSM is Double Lift. I expect that TSM is going to try to lane swap both games because they're going to want to put Darshan in a 1v2 lane, and they're also going to want to put the rookie Lorlo in a 1v2 lane to really pressure him and try to see if they can get him to crack on the stage for the this is going to be the first time that he's playing in the LCS. So I would expect lane swaps for both games for TSM. Next team talking about is Team Liquid. They're going up against Renegades and TSM. I think that Team Liquid will win both of those games. Mainly because, like I said, TSM struggles in the first week, and I think that Team Liquid has a stronger team on paper than Renegades. However, I think that Piglet and Lorlo are going to have their hands full. Piglet's going to be going up against Freeze, who I think is a very underrated AD carry. He's currently ranked number 2 on the EU server. And then also Piglet's going up against Double Lift, which is also a very challenging lane for him. And Lorlo, even though he's a top-ranked challenger player, this is the first time he's playing on the LCS stage. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of people watching that he's probably not used to. So it'll be very interesting to see how he performs. I'm really excited to see if he's able to live up to the pressure and the hype of replacing Quas in top lane. Because of that, though, the key player for Team Liquid is going to be Phoenix. Phoenix is going to need to hard carry these games. I think that Phoenix can go do very well against Alex Ich in mid lane against Renegades, and Phoenix has performed well against Bjergsen in the past. So Phoenix is going to be the key for Team Liquid to go 2-0 this week. Next team I'm going to talk about is Cloud9. Cloud9 has got Immortals and Echo Fox on the plate this week. I think they're going to go 1-1. I do think that the Immortals are going to beat Cloud9, but I'm going to put a big but in there. Cloud9 is the Giant Slayer. Cloud9 is known for upsetting teams. So I think that if anybody has a chance at beating Immortals, it's Cloud9. The other thing that Cloud9 has going for them is that they're pretty used to playing with each other. The only person that they really added is Rush, because it looks like Hyde's probably going to be starting at support. So I think that they are going to have that experience advantage on their side as well. That said, I do think that the key player for Cloud9 is going to be Rush. If Rush can snowball the early game, that's going to be the deciding factor on whether or not Cloud9 can go 1-1 or possibly 2-0 this week. Next up that I'll be talking about is Immortals. They're going against Cloud9 and Team Impulse. I think the Immortals will go 2-0 this week. The Cloud9 game is going to be close, but I think that the Huni versus Balls matchup, that's going to be the deciding factor. Huni is just... he's so good. I mean, he's just one of the best top laners in the world. I think that Balls is going to struggle a lot with the amount of pressure that he brings, and that's going to allow Huni to get ahead, and then Huni can start impacting the other lanes. And I think that Immortals is just going to absolutely steamroll Team Impulse. Team Impulse, not only are they not very familiar playing with each other, but they're also very kind of just inexperienced, and they're just not as... highly rated as the players that are on Immortals. So I think that Immortals will go 2-0, and I think that Huni will be the key player for Immortals this week. Next up is Echo Fox. They're going up against Team Impulse and Cloud9. I think that they're going to wind up going 1-1. I think that Echo Fox can beat Team Impulse, but I think that they're going to struggle against Cloud9. I think they'll be able to do well in the laning phase. Like, as far as mechanics, like, I think they match up pretty well player for player with Cloud9, but I think that they're going to get punished by High's superior shot calling in the mid and late game. I think that's going to be the difference. That said, I think the key player for Echo Fox is going to be KFO. He's coming over from Korea. He's got a lot to prove, and I think he's got favorable matchups in both the Team Impulse game and the Cloud9 game. So next person to talk about is Team Impulse. They're going up against Echo Fox and Immortals. I think they're going to go 0-2. They look very weak this season. I think they're the weakest team in the NA LCS right now, at least on paper. I I think that their only shot is if Proxen is able to get a couple of early ganks in that allow his team to get a couple of kills and snowball the early game. That's the only way that Team Impulse is going to be able to win this week. Next team will be Team Dignitas. They're going up against NRG and CLG. I think that they're going to go 1-1 this week. I think they have a better chance winning against NRG than CLG, but they have a chance in both games. I'm not going to say that it's that they don't have a snowball's chance in hell against CLG. But I think that their main focus has got to be funneling gold onto Apollo and allowing him to carry. Apollo is a really underrated AD carry in my opinion. He performed phenomenal last season. He was one of the highest fantasy point scorers, and he's got 2 challenger level accounts that are in the top 20 in all of NA. So he is really underrated. I think that if they can funnel gold onto him, they have a very good chance at winning. Next thing we'll talk about is NRG. They're going against Dignitas and Renegades. I think they're going to go 1-1, but they have a good possibility to go 2-0. I think that the biggest deciding factor on whether or not they go 1-1 or 2-0 is going to be impact. I think he's going to have a huge advantage in both of those games, and he's probably going to try and snowball. It's just a question of whether or not he can translate that snowball into a team victory. The other matchup that I'm going to be looking at really closely for NRG is GBM versus Shifter. That's going to be really interesting to see if GBM can really make that transition to NA LCS. I know he was very good over in Korea, and we always assume that Korean players are better than NA players. And this is really going to be his first test to prove that. And that actually might be the deciding factor in the Dignitas game. Last NA team I'll be talking about is Renegades. They're going up against Team Liquid and NRG. I think they're going to go 0-2. It's a difficult week for them. It's the first time that they're going to be, on the LCS stage as an LCS team rather than a challenger team. I think their keys to victory is going to be they got to get Freeze and Remy on champions that they feel comfortable with. I mean, I could definitely see them going like Calista Thresh, because those are both champions that they're very good with. And I think that they should try and go for a lane swap so that Freeze can get ahead and Remy can roam early. So if they can get Freeze to get some extra gold, I think Freeze is capable of carrying both games if possible. But I think that the odds are definitely stacked against them. Moving on to the EU LCS. First team I'll talk about is Fnatic. They're going up against Origin and Vitality. I think they're going to go 1-1. I don't think they're going to be able to beat Origin, but I do think that they will beat Vitality. And the big reason for that is they don't look as smooth as last season. If you look at like the IEMs that they played in, they still have that spark. They still have that, that ability and that raw potential, but they're just not as smooth, not as quick as they were at Worlds last season. I think that's just because they're not. They've got a bunch of new players and also different shot calling. I think that they're going to have difficult matchups in both top lane and AD carry. So the key player for Fnatic is going to be Featherman, because he's got favorable matchups in both lanes. If he can carry, that's really going to improve Fnatic's chances at winning. So now we're going to talk about Origin. Origin has possibly the hardest week that they could have. They're going up against Fnatic and H2K, which are probably if you're looking at the top 3 teams, it's probably going to be Fnatic, Origin, H2K, not necessarily in that order, but those are going to be your top 3 teams. So this is going to be a really difficult week for Origin. That said, I think they're going to go 2-0. And the big reason for that is that this is the best time to have that hard week, because Origin is already a cohesive unit. The only person that they're bringing in that's different is Power of Evil, and they've had tons of time. They made that announcement a long time ago, so they've been playing with Power of Evil for months and months and months now. And compared to Fnatic and H2K, which had a huge amount of roster swaps, they have had less time to play with each other. So I think that Origin is in a very good place, and they're much more experienced with each other that they can beat both Fnatic and H2K this week. That said, I think that the deciding factor is going to be Mithy. Mithy is really, if you look at like top lane versus top lane, jungle versus jungle, mid versus mid, AD carry versus AD carry, support, that's where Origin has a huge advantage. I feel like Mithy is a level above both Noxiac and Vander. So Mithy being able to get gold onto Sven, being able to roam early is going to be essential for Origin to win both their games this week. So, of course, the next team I'm going to talk about is H2K. They're going up against Giants in Origin. I think that H2K is going to have an easy win against Giants, and I think that they're going to wind up losing to Origin. I think that the key player for H2K this week is going to be Ryu. I think he is a much more dominant mid laner than Xpepe or Power of Evil. So Xpepe, not to be confused with Xpeke. Xpepe is Pepinero from last split for Giants. And then Power of Evil. I know that Power of Evil is a very good mid laner, but Ryu has just looked phenomenal. He looks really, really good. I think the biggest question for H2K is Forgiven. Forgiven was a top-rated AD carry, and then he fell off last year with Gambit. This year in IEM, he's shown some real flashes of brilliance. So I'm really curious to see what's going to happen. Which Forgiven is going to show up. But if Forgiven plays up to his potential, if he plays up to his ability level, H2K could wind up going 2-0 this week. So next thing we'll talk about is Unicorns of Love. They're going up against Splice and Giants. I feel like this is the easiest week for any team in NA or EU. I feel like Unicorns of Love has a advantage against both Splice and Giants. And really, in my opinion, these are must-wins for Unicorns of Love. If Unicorns of Love can't go 2-0 this week, that's a really bad sign. That's a sign that they are going to struggle a lot once they go up against these top-tier teams later on in the season. That said, I think the key player for Unicorns of Love is Fox. Fox has got to dominate the mid lane if Unicorns of Love is going to go 2-0 this week. So next on the plate is Giants. They're going up against H2K and Unicorns of Love. I feel like they don't stack up against either of these teams, at least on paper. Xpepe and Adri are going to be really hard pressed in both of these games. They're going to come up against top mid laners and top AD carries in both of these games. I think that the biggest factor in whether or not they're going to be able to win is going to be jungle pressure. So that means that Ko is going to be their key player for this game. He's got to be able to relieve some pressure, allowing Xpepe and Adri to carry. Next team I have is Roccat. They're going up against Vitality in G2. I think that Roccat is the weakest team in the EU on paper. They're kind of like the EU Team Impulse right now. I mean, you can see all brand new players. It's a fresh roster. These players have never played together on the LCS stage. And there's just so many questions that are unanswered about these players. They're all relatively unknowns. Who we just don't know anything about them. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Roccat in this first week. The only way that I can see that Roccat gets a win is jungle's pressure. If Airwalks has a great game and is able to snowball one or two of his lanes, then Rockat's got a chance. But if Airwalks can't get a lot of pressure in the early game, I don't see Roccat winning either of these games. Next team I'll talk about is Elements. They're going up against G2 and Splice. I think they're going to go 1-1, but there really are a lot of questions surrounding Elements. They've got 4 new players, and yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see whether or not they've had enough time to mesh together. I think that G2 looks better than they do on paper, and I think it's a toss-up with Splice. So it's possible for them to go 1-1, but they might go 0-2. Or they could upset G2 and go 2-0. I think that Mr. Rallis is definitely their best bet to win the games. So hopefully they can funnel gold onto him, possibly put him in a 1v2 lane swap. and then get some early pressure from the jungle. Alright, next team will be Team Vitality. They're going up against Rockcat and Fnatic. I think that it's almost certain that they're going to go 1-1. They should be able to beat Rockcat, but I don't think they have a chance to beat Fnatic. That said, the one area where they are just, I think, way far ahead of both Rockcat and Fnatic is support. I think that Kasing is a better support than both Edward and Noxiac. Much more experience, and Kasing has proven himself as a top support in the EU LCS. I think that his ability to get his AD carry ahead and his ability to roam is going to be essential for Vitality to win. Next team I'm talking about is Splice. They're going up against Unicorns of Love and Elements. I think they will go 0-2. They're a very inexperienced team, though I do think that the Elements match is a toss-up. I think that they're going to have to rely on Trashy, their jungler, because not only is Trashy the only experienced LCS player they have, but also whenever you look at teams that have an underdog, it's usually the jungle pressure that's going to give them a shot at winning if they don't match up skill for skill against their lane opponents. So yeah, Trashy, his impact is going to determine whether or not Splice can get a victory this week. The last team, of course, for EU LCS is G2. They're going against Elements and Rockcat. I feel like they have the easiest week this week besides Unicorns of Love. I feel like that they should be able to beat both Elements and Rockcat, and I think that the key player for G2 is going to be Emperor. I feel like Emperor definitely should be able to outperform Mr. Rallis and Saphir, but there still are a lot of questions surrounding Trick, Perks, and Hybrid. So their performance and how they're able to help Emperor is really going to determine whether or not G2 can go 2-0 in this very easy week for them. So this is kind of the executive summary. We've already talked about this. So the way that I do this is I look at each matchup and I give it basically a color rating, where red is easy matchup expected to win, purple is like a favorable matchup, blue is a coin flip, green means I think that they're the underdog, but they could win. And then yellow, of course, is they're a huge underdog. So you can see, like, I have Team Liquid. I think that they're pretty much a surefire win against Renegades. But I think and I only think that they're favorable against TSM, so they could possibly lose. So I arrange all these teams, and from this I can figure out whether or not I think they're going to go 2-0, 1-1, or 0-2 this week. And then in the lower left-hand corner, I've got all the key players and who they're going up against. Because usually when I figure out who the key player is, I look at their lane opponents and I look at who I think they're going to succeed against, right? So for example, with Huni, he's going up against Balls and Fang. I would put Huni in a completely different level than I would put Balls and Fang. Therefore, I think that Huni is going to have 2 very good games. He's probably going to get a lot of fantasy points this week. And if he performs up to his level, he should be a deciding factor in his team's ability to win. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you like the content on the channel, please subscribe. I'll be doing these videos every single week. And if you have any questions, if you disagree with me, if you agree with me, any type of feedback, I'm happy to have a discussion about this kind of stuff, because I'm definitely, not infallible when it comes to these things. Leave a comment. I'll do my best to respond back to you guys and try and give you more content or explain myself better. But I hope you guys have a great day. This is Randomonium signing off.